last 10 years and ensure that these centers remain engines of growth, research, and regional leadership.
The NUC boss stressed that the center must transition from temporary project status into permanent institutional assets, while urging vice chancellors and center leaders to solidify their sustainability strategies. Ricardo also urged them to secure diversified funding sources and entrench government governance frameworks that attract both public and private investments. The government of the Democratic Republic of and out to East Africa. Uganda is set to receive renewed financial support from the World Bank nearly 2 years after the global lender suspended the new funding in response to the country's anti-homosexuality act. The bank authored funds to East Africa country in August 2023 after Uganda's parliament passed the Anti-Homosexuality Act, saying the law contradicted its values. The World Bank spokesperson, who asked not to be named, stated that the bank had worked with Ugandan authorities to put in place strong measures to mitigate against potential harm from the law. The World Bank is one of Uganda's biggest sources of external financing, especially in infrastructure construction in the transport sector. Still in East Africa, where voters across Burundi are heading to the polls today to elect a new parliament in the country's first legislative election since 2020, and the first time in its history that parliamentary and presidential elections are being held separately. This change follows constitutional amendments made in 2018, which not only altered the electoral calendar but also extended the presidential term from 5 to 7 years. The shift has set the stage for what many see as an important political moment in the lead up to the 2027 presidential votes. President Evariste Ndayishimiye's ruling party, the CNDD-FDD, remains the dominant political force, having held power for nearly 20 years, as the elections are widely regarded as a key test of its continued influence and of the broader democratic process in Burundi. The outcome of today's election is expected to shape the country's political trajectory well beyond the next 2 years. And now turning to North Africa, where the United Nations Rights Office has called for an independent investigation into the discovery of mass graves at detention centers in Libya's capital, Tripoli. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights said it was shocked by gross human rights violations in covert at official and unofficial detention facilities run by the stability support apparatus and security institutions. Libya, the major oil producer in the Mediterranean, has known a little law and order since a 2011 NATO-backed uprising that toppled the dictator Muammar al-Gaddafi and virtually divided the country between the warring eastern and western factions. The ONCRO says the discovery of dozens of bodies and suspected instruments of torture and abuse confirmed the long-standing findings by the UN that human rights violations were committed at such sites. Global Boss reaching you live from Adamimogo, also on the 7 FM Duikiti. Still to come, Trump announces full U.S. travel ban on 12 countries, restrictions on 7. These and many other stories when we return.
The Nigerian army has taken custody of two of the...
Get ready to dive into the latest headlines,
Nigerians deported from the United
in-depth stories, and breaking updates that matter to you.
To face the challenge to be able to fulfill the dream and the aspiration.
From local events to global affairs, we've got you covered. Stay with us as we unravel the stories shaping our world today. This is Adamimogo 107.7 FM News.
glad to know you're still there. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook for Adamimogo 107.7 FM. For happenings around you and news inquiries, please contact our newsroom on this number 0915 786 8095. I take it again 0915 786 8095. And now to the rest of the news. United States President Donald Trump has signed an executive order that imposes a full travel ban on people from 12 countries and restricting the citizens of 7 other countries. The directive is part of an immigration crackdown Trump launched this year at the start of his second term, which has also included the deportation to El Salvador of hundreds of Venezuelans suspected of being gang members and efforts to deny the enrollment of some foreign students and deport others. In a video message from the White House, Trump stated that the recent attack on a pro-Israel rally in Boulder, Colorado, reveals the serious risks posed to the country by foreign nationals who have not been properly vetted.
Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them. In the 21st century, we've seen one terror attack after another carried out by foreign visa overstayers from dangerous places all over the world. And we will not let what happened in Europe happen to America.
He added that the countries affected by the latest travel ban are Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen.
Today, I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others. The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise, new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe.
Why the entry of people from 7 other countries, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela, will be partially restricted. The United States has vetoed a draft UN Security Council resolution that demanded an immediate, unconditional and a permanent ceasefire between Israel and Hamas militants in Gaza and unhindered aid access across the Western enclave. The other 40 countries on the council voted in favor of the draft as the humanitarian crisis grips the enclave of more than 2 million people, where famine, loans, and aid has only trickled in since Israel lifted an 11-week blockade last month. The acting U.S. ambassadors to the UN, Dorothy Shear, told the Council before the vote, argued that it would also undermine U.S.-led efforts to broker a ceasefire, noting that the U.S. would not support any measure that fails to condemn Hamas.
That Israel has a right to defend itself, which includes defeating Hamas and ensuring they are never again in a position to threaten Israel. In this regard, any product that undermines our close ally Israel's security is a non-starter. This resolution would undermine diplomatic efforts to reach a ceasefire that reflects the realities on the ground and emboldens Hamas. This resolution also draws false equivalence between Israel and Hamas, which is both wrong and dangerous.
The Security Council vote came as Israel pushes ahead with an offensive in Gaza after ending a 2-month truce in March. Germany's new Chancellor Friedrich Merz will hold his first face-to-face talks with U.S. President Donald Trump today. In a high-stakes meeting in the Oval Office as Europe seeks to stave off looming U.S. tariffs and sustain U.S. backing for Ukraine. The 69-year-old conservative who took the helm of Europe's largest economy last month is scheduled to join Trump for lunch and one-on-one talks that analysts say could set the tone for U.S.-German ties for years to come. The meeting comes amid a broader frame of the transatlantic relationship. Trump's administration has, for example, intervened in domestic European politics in a break with past practice aligning with right-wing political movements and challenging European policy on immigration and free speech. The encounter will be closely watched after some recent meetings in the Oval Office with the leaders of Ukraine and South Africa, for example, turned stance when Trump ambushed them with false claims and accusations. South Korea's new president Lee Jae-myung has held his first cabinet meeting today, focused on devising an emergency package to address stagnated economic growth and aid households, moving swiftly to start tackling a top campaign pledge. Lee took office yesterday just hours after riding a wave of anger over the brief martial law imposed by Yoon Suk-yeol to win the snap election. The attempt at a military rule led to Yoon's ouster and sent shockwaves through Asia's fourth largest economy. In brief remarks open to the media, Lee to the carryover cabinet left by the caretaker government that was in place following Yoon's impeachment in December, that there was no time to waste in getting to work as the people were facing hardship. Jae-myung described his first day in office as an unsettling, noting that the presidential office felt like a graveyard after discovering it had been stripped of computers, printers, and even pens. On business, oil edged toward today after the build in U.S. gasoline and diesel inventories and cuts to Saudi Arabia's July prices for Asian crude buyers, with the global economic uncertainty waiting on prices as well. Brent crude futures fell 1 cent to $64.85 per barrel, while the U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude lost 11 cents, dropping to $62.74 per barrel. Oil prices closed around 1% lower yesterday after official data showed that U.S. gasoline and distillate stockpiles grew more than expected, reflecting weaker demand in the world's top economy. Adding to the weakness, Saudi Arabia, the world's biggest oil exporter, cut its July prices for Asia crude buyers to nearly the lowest in 4 years. And on sport, Serbian professional tennis player Novak Djokovic came from behind to beat Alexander Zverev at the French Open, setting up a blockbuster semi-final clash with Jannik Sinner. Djokovic, seeking a standalone record 25th Grand Slam singles title, lost in the first set but won Dan Zverev in a thrilling encounter to win 4-6, 3-6-2, 6-4 in Paris. The 38-year-old Serber, who becomes the oldest French Open semi-finalist in 57 years, will face top seed Sinner on Friday after the Italian earlier eased to a strict set victory over Alexander Bolek. Both Djokovic and Zverev have largely struggled for form since they met in the last 4 of the opening Grand Slams of the year, the Australian Open in January. To end Global Box at noon, a recap of our top stories. We told you that the Executive Secretary of the National University Commission, Prof. Abdullahi Rebadu, has urged beneficiary institutions of the African Centers of Excellence project in Nigeria to look beyond donors, support, and focus on the project's sustainability. Remember, the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo has banned media outlets from reporting on the activities of former President Joseph Kabila or interviewing members of his party. I will lastly inform you that United States President Donald Trump has signed an executive order imposing a full travel ban on people from 12 countries and restricting the citizens of 7 other countries. That's Global Box on Adamimogo 107.7 FM, Olojudo's Palace, Ido Ekiti. On behalf of the production crew, my name is